The DC Universe. You all know it. Great characters, great comics, great animated movies, and live-action movies ranging from mid to atrocious, with definitively one of the greatest live-action movies of all time. Don't fight me on this. I promise you, your dumb opinion is wrong. I have the power of IMDb on my side. Now, despite having mostly terrible movies, the DC Multiverse is a rich tapestry of multiversal history. Which, yeah, it's pretty convoluted at times, but who else is going to fill their head with this nonsense, which would push out all the other information that I need, like where are my car keys, and come out while I'm at parties and isolate me from everybody. The multiverse. What is it? A multiverse would be a collection of many universes, each universe a little different from the last. In dumb comic books, they often cross over. You've probably all seen the Marvel movies, you know, the Spider-Mans all show up and it makes $1 billion. It's also a great way to milk old fans for their nostalgia to cover up for the fact that the movie's kind of mid otherwise. But you get it. The idea is that there's multiple worlds. Tobey Maguire, he's breaking his back in one world, while Tom Holland is busy kissing girls in the other, all while Andrew Garfield, arguably the best version, gets to live in a sad universe that's basically dead at this point. Looking under the hood, in the MCU, we find that these universes are all strands of a larger multiverse, with different timelines, all branching off, which turns out is all run by a crazy man, then briefly anarchy, and then run by arguably a crazier man. A lot of these multiversal shenanigans were sort of just created to explain that the authors were really just winging it when they were creating these universes back in the day. Is the Batman hanging out with Superman the same Batman who hangs out with Robin and punches mentally deranged folks in Gotham? Sure. Boom. You got a shared continuity. Now, is the opposite true? Do they not cross over? Boom. Again. You've got a multiverse. Both Marvel and DC have a multiverse, but how they operate are very different and for very different reasons. We're going to talk about Marvel briefly because, in all honesty, it's just a better cultural touchstone to explain the basics than DC because of its wider mainstream appeal. It's better to perhaps illustrate how DC's multiverse differs from Marvel's by looking at a snapshot of how Marvel runs things. But not too long, because in a video about DC, I'm already pretty sick of talking about Marvel. But anyways, sure. Like most multiverses, Marvel has different worlds, all with different numbers. There's Earth 616, the main comic universe. There's Earth 2149, where most of the heroes are now zombies. There's even Earth 199999, which, in context of all Marvel worlds, is the universe where the MCU exists in. But the main Marvel universe, the canon Marvel universe, is Earth 616, which has ostensibly remained unchanged since its invention in the 1960s. Let's talk about canon. The canon storyline of any given fictional universe is what is considered factual going forward. For instance, in Marvel, Earth 616 is the canon universe. It's the comic universe, it's the main continuity where everything is happening. For instance, Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's original girlfriend, better than MJ if you ask me, died on Earth 616 when Spider-Man caught her the wrong way after Green Goblin threw her off a bridge. She died, and sure, we have Spider-Gwen from Earth 65, but in Earth 616, she's still dead. She doesn't come back. But even in the main continuity, sometimes things needed to be changed, and if this needed to happen, they would get the authors to write a little flashback of when Peter Parker is remembering the good old days back in high school, and they could just slip anything they needed to change in at that point, flashback style. Which is kind of weird considering if you've been reading the comics since the 60s, but it also preserves that timeline from the 60s till now. It's all an unbroken line. Now, the way that DC handles its multiverse and its canon are a little bit more explicitly tied together. If the DC universe needs a reboot, for whatever reason, usually a universe-altering crisis will occur. This crisis typically scrambles everything, and after it's done, the universe is left a little different than it was before the crisis. Thus, a new universe is born, and authors can make whatever changes they need to at this point. Now, this means we can trace DC's history from one reboot to the other, because each one has a beginning and an end, bookended by a crisis. Now, there's one more thing I want to mention just going forward. The tricky part about this is that DC and its alternate dimensions also changes every time there's a reboot. That's right. There are actually multiple different iterations of DC's multiverse. And what do you call a collection of multiverses that all more or less exist simultaneously with one another? Some call it an omniverse. Some call it a megaverse. Some call it a metaverse. I'm going to call it the metaverse going forward because I would like to wrestle that term away from Zuckerberg. Nah, I'm just kidding. But I did want to take this time to let you know, spoiler alert, we are going to be spoilering the heck out of the DC multiverse. All of these comics on the screen, I'm going to be discussing pretty in depth for the most part, so if you're worried about that, now you know. Also, this is not an endeavor to be taken lightly. I'm going to be talking about literally everything I can think of about the multiverse. So, if that's not interesting to you, there's the door. The first real superhero, and the first real superhero comic ever, was Action Comics #1, featuring Superman. This is where the DC universe starts off with a bang. Superman gets a bad rap as a one-dimensional goody two-shoes, but in 1939, nobody had really seen anything like this. The DCUs continued to expand, including the likes of Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, Jay Garrick, the original Flash, Green Arrow, and Black Canary, amongst many other well-known heroes. Readers flocked to the newsstands to check out the next hero that might become their new favorite. Eventually, editors wondered, what would happen if we teamed up some of these characters? What if they met each other? Enter Gardner Fox. Gardner Fox, like many comic creators, is kind of an unsung hero in the terms of the multiverse, as well as superhero teams. Nobody had thought to create a team of superheroes until Gardner Fox penned the first company-wide team-up comic book in history, the Justice Society of America. Yeah, the same guys from Black Adam. Sort of. Though we haven't rebooted universes yet, this was a monumental idea in the comic book industry. In fact, all of these fresh and wondrous ideas in the DC universe, and within the larger comic book industry at the time, have all been dubbed as the Golden Age of comics. And it's at the crossing of the Golden Age to the Silver Age where we see our first major shift, and most fans didn't even know it was happening. In the 1960s, DC decided to create new versions of some of their characters and freshen up their existing ones. Two major players were Barry Allen, aka The Flash, and Hal Jordan, aka Green Lantern. These characters were added to the DC universe. They joined a new team called the Justice League of America, the A-list team for superheroes in the DC universe, comprised of all the fan favorites during this time. But it's at this point that readers realized something peculiar was happening. Barry Allen, after being struck by lightning in his lab and gaining super speed, wondered what he should call himself if he was going to fight crime. Barry, a fan of The Flash comic book series featuring Jay Garrick, decided to name himself after his beloved World War II inspired comic book hero. This gave readers the first realization that Golden Age heroes didn't quite exist in the same universe as these newer ones. In fact, even Batman and Robin seemed to have something fishy going on. Some readers found that instead of Batman and Robin having aged 20 years since their invention in 1940, they still seemed fresh-faced and young. So DC hatched a plan to explain this discrepancy and sell more comics. They basically said to readers, okay, these new comics that we have coming out, we'll say these characters live on Earth 1, since it's new and fresh. That's our main continuity. This is where the Justice League exists. But if you want to read more stories about the good old Golden Age versions of our heroes, you can pick up a book that takes place on Earth 2. And see how our older heroes in the Justice Society are still defending their Earth as their world continues to change. In many ways, this was also to protect the status quo. Readers always wanted to read about Batman in his prime, rather than him riding off into the sunset with Catwoman and their daughter, while toting along a fully grown man still dressed up as Robin. I'm not making this up. But what truly baffled readers was our first multiversal event, 1961's The Flash of Two Worlds by Gardner Fox. Yes, not only did Gardner Fox create the concept of a superhero team, but also the concept of a comic book multiverse. In The Flash of Two Worlds, we see Barry Allen, the Earth 1 Flash, coming in contact with Jay Garrick, the Earth 2 Flash. It's at this point that both universes become aware of one another, and sometimes start to become entangled. And it's at this point where the ball started rolling towards things getting a little bit out of hand. Just 2 years after the Flash of Two Worlds, we have what is dubbed DC's first crisis, a term which would come to denote a multiversal disturbance. Gardner Fox returned to pen Crisis on Multiple Earths in 1963. In this story, we see the Justice League of Earth 1 and the Justice Society of Earth 2 square off against the Crime Syndicate of America from the new Earth 3. On Earth 3, right is wrong and wrong is right. Instead of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman being keepers of peace and justice, there is Owlman, Superwoman, and Ultraman, alternate and very evil versions of the heroes we know and love. One of which eats kryptonite to gain his powers and is weak to the sun. Yeah. The Crime Syndicate shows up to invade Earths 1 and 2. Banding together, our heroes are able to stop the Crime Syndicate and ensure peace on their respective worlds. Now this really resonated with readers. They loved seeing different versions of the heroes that they'd come to know and love, clashing together in an earth-shattering conflict. DC, realizing the innovation they had on their hands, decided to integrate even more heroes into their shared universe as DC became big enough to acquire other comic book companies who ended up folding to the monolith that was DC. And thus Earth 4 was born. This is the Charlton Comics universe, another comic book company acquired by DC back in the day, around this time. This is home of Blue Beetle, The Question, Peacemaker, and Captain Atom. And after this, Earth 5, or stylized as Earth S. This is the universe of all the Fawcett Comics characters, another company that DC sort of swallowed when they went under. Earth S, S short for Shazam, was home to Captain Marvel. Different Captain Marvel. You know, it's complicated, but it's a story for another time. Anyways, Earth S is home to Captain Marvel. He's now known as Shazam. Y'all know him. I mean, it's obviously not the same as the Captain Marvel from Marvel. Fawcett Comics just got to the name before Marvel did. That's all, okay? Don't worry about it. Anyways, it's home to Captain Marvel and his colorful family of magically imbued orphans. Throughout the next 20 years, DC would continue to add new Earths to the mixing pot of characters in their multiverse. Some consisted of one-off worlds used in one comic book, while others contained long-standing or dormant universes of characters bought by DC. It was later revealed that there were an infinite number of universes within the DC universe, all slightly different from the last, which authors and editors could include to spice up their stories. But they soon learned that perhaps too much of a good thing can indeed go bad. Sure, it's a novel idea when you have a universe where Lex Luthor is the good guy fighting an evil Justice League, but it can get confusing when you can theoretically have a story where two good Batman are teaming up with a good Lex Luthor and a good Joker, while fighting an evil Batman, a Soviet Superman, and a bad Lex Luthor, all in a universe where Germany won World War II. It became clear that with all these dimensions, things were getting a little hard for readers to juggle. DC needed to come up with a way to clear things up and make things a little bit easier to follow for their readers. Since DC had so many different alternate Earths hanging around, they decided to do an epic company-wide crossover containing all of the IP that they had at their disposal at that time. It became one of the greatest and biggest events in the DC universe, probably of all time. Penned by Marv Wolfman, Crisis on Infinite Earths sees a couple new entities who exist outside of the multiverse: the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor. The Monitor makes sure the multiverse is doing alright and protects it, while the Anti-Monitor, upon consuming a universe, learns that when he does so, he becomes more powerful. He decides to go on a tear, eating every universe in sight. By the time the Monitor gets it together to organize an offensive, the Anti-Monitor had destroyed every universe in the infinite multiverse except for Earth 1. While the carnage went on, the Monitor gathered all of the most powerful heroes to Earth 1, and when the Anti-Monitor showed up, some notable heroes sacrificed their lives so that they could defeat him. Barry Allen, the one who was there when this whole multiverse mess kicked off, ran until his body disintegrated in order to make it so that the heroes might have a chance in defeating the Anti-Monitor. After this, the Kid Flash, Wally West, inherited the title of his mentor and became the new Flash, and worked with the Justice League and all of its heroes to finally put an end to the Anti-Monitor. But as we established, all of the universes were destroyed, except for Earth 1, which was now dubbed New Earth. Now, Blue Beetle, and The Question, and Captain Not Captain Marvel from Marvel, neither girl Captain Marvel, or other girl Captain Marvel. Just forget about Captain Marvel going forward. It's okay. All now exist in one singular dimension. And boy, this didn't even last all that long. Once the multiverse dam was broken, it has just been chaos ever since. Now before we go on, we need to have a little side note about a small indie comic called Watchmen. If you don't know what Watchmen is, you've probably seen the little icon, you know, the smiley face button with the blood splatter across it. It's sort of become the symbol for Watchmen as the years have gone on since it was published. Superstar comic author and notoriously cranky wizard-looking man, Alan Moore, approached DC just before Crisis on Infinite Earths to pitch a comic book containing all of the old Charlton Comics characters. He pitched it and DC was like, no way, you've basically ruined all of these characters. We are planning to integrate these guys into the main continuity. We love your story, but you can't use these characters. So Alan Moore basically created rip-offs of the Charlton comic characters so as not to infringe upon DC's plans at the time. Now, it's kind of funny considering the fact that most of those Charlton characters that DC wanted to save are sort of B-list at best. They didn't really kick off the way they wanted to, but Watchmen is lauded as one of the greatest comic books of all time. So instead of the Question, we've got Rorschach. Instead of Peacemaker, we've got the Comedian. Instead of Blue Beetle, we've got Night Owl. Instead of Captain Atom, we've got Dr. Manhattan. And instead of Nightshade, we've got the Silk Spectre. All of these new characters made up the heroes focused on in the story of Watchmen. The short of the story is that the world is afraid of nuclear war. Superheroes are banned from society unless they register with the government. Dr. Manhattan, who is a near-omniscient and omnipresent figure, is trying his best to stop the world from falling apart, along with the efforts of other heroes. I'm not going to spoil it, because Watchmen is considered one of the greatest comic books of all time. But for the sake of this video, I'll just let you know that most of the heroes either die or become disillusioned, or in Dr. Manhattan's case, goes to live on Mars because he doesn't think the world needs him or wants him, which is probably a little bit true. But how is all this tying in? We'll get to it. Just hang on tight. Let's hop on over to the 90s. The heroes in DC discover a flow of alternate realities rippling from the main continuity. Later, it was revealed that it was created by the World Forger. Now, we'll get to him later. I know, I'm sorry it's confusing, but we'll talk about some key players a little bit later on. Honestly, Hypertime is really confusing, and I haven't really met anyone or seen a lot of YouTubers who, know what it is all about. But I think it kind of operates similar to the MCU's timeline, where there's a bunch of threads of different timelines, all coming forth from a single point. In 2005, readers were introduced to an alternate universe known as Earth Prime. Not to be confused with Prime Earth, which we'll get to. But Earth Prime is literally our Earth. The real Earth that we all live on. This is the universe where the world is normal and we read about Batman and Superman in comics. Except there is a young man named Clark Kent who learns he is Superman, or Superboy, rather. He's the Superman of our universe. No other heroes exist except him. Why did they do this? Either way, he goes insane and breaks out of Earth Prime and tries to destroy everything. They call him Superboy Prime. I know. Luckily, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and the gang stop him and put an end to his multiverse damaging plan. Don't be deceived. This is far from the final crisis. And to explain this, we are going to need to delve into the Fourth World, created in 1971, pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths by Jack Kirby. We're going to spend a fair amount of time on this, so just bear with me. It'll all tie in. Jack Kirby, the king of comics, creator of Captain America, and co-creator, to some degree, of the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and a handful of other characters that Stan Lee decided to take most of the credit for. Ooh, sorry, did it get a little too real for you, all you Stan Lee stans? Well, sorry, truth hurts. But honestly, we're not going to discuss it a whole ton, so please stay. Anyways, Jack Kirby left Marvel because he hated that a certain someone that the company liked more was getting a lot of credit for his ideas. So he went over to DC to create his own comic. A comic that would become fundamental to the DC universe, a comic series dubbed The Fourth World. The Fourth World is the home of the new gods, as Kirby called them, also known as the Sphere of Gods, if you look at any DC multiversal map. Hold your horses, we'll get there, calm down, calm down. The idea was that the characters in the Fourth World existed outside of the multiverse, and were so powerful and their stories of such mythological proportions that they were like the Greek gods of old. The two main locations in the Fourth World are New Genesis and Apocalypse. It's basically like New Genesis is where all the benevolent characters hang out, and Apocalypse is where all the evil characters hang out. I'm really not going to go too much detail into it, but characters like Mr. Miracle, Orion, Big Barda, and the High Father come from New Genesis. Probably the most crucial character from the Fourth World, and probably the biggest bad guy in the DC universe, is Darkseid. You've probably seen him. Looks like he's made of rocks, usually standing all stoic-like with his hands behind his back. He can shoot Omega beams, which can go around corners, which might be the scariest thing about him. Also, Jim Starlin, creator of Thanos, created Thanos because he said he wanted Marvel to have a villain who was just like Darkseid. So yeah, there we go. Again, Marvel ripping off DC. Hopefully this hasn't been a rude awakening for all you Marvel fans, but and don't get me wrong. I like Marvel a lot. I just think DC doesn't really get credit for all the things it pioneered. It was there at the beginning in the 1930s. It was there a long time before Marvel was, and honestly, I just really think that it's seriously true that DC has a lot of the first. Anyways, Darkseid rules over Apocalypse, and he's constantly looking for something called the anti-life equation. An equation that, if known, will allow the user to dominate the will of all living beings. And where is the anti-life equation, you might ask? Well, where else than on New Earth, which is what brings us to the final crisis. Basically, after some other Fourth World shenanigans in that comic line, Darkseid finally gets the anti-life equation and almost takes over Earth. He gets pretty close, except our heroes show up to stop him, all culminating in Batman pulling a multiverse gun out on Darkseid and finally ending the villain. And then, without Batman knowing, Darkseid had fired off some of his around-the-corner beams, which hit Batman and kill him. But not really, because obviously in comic books, nobody's really dead. He was just shot through time, and then he spent a while hopping back and forth through time so that he could get back to his family, and honestly, it's a story for another time. Anyways, moving on from Final Crisis, we enter what some might consider the modern era of DC Comics. Our boy the Flash, Barry Allen, who had been resurrected from the dead a couple years prior, wakes up one day and everything's a little bit different. And by a little bit different, I mean that basically everything has been changed. His mom is alive, Superman is nowhere to be seen, Wonder Woman and her Amazonians are at war with Aquaman and the Atlanteans, resulting in World War III. Everything sucks, and Barry has no powers. He shows up to Wayne Mansion to get some help from the world's greatest detective, only to find that in this world, Bruce Wayne isn't Batman. But his father, Thomas Wayne, is now a much darker, gun-toting, alcoholic Batman. Nevertheless, Thomas Wayne helps Barry get his Flash powers back, and they start to find out what went wrong. Basically, after all is said and done, they discover that Barry Allen, in the New Earth timeline, ran so fast as to time travel and went back in time and tried to save his mom from being killed. This results in a butterfly effect, which basically turned everything to crap. Reverse Flash shows up to make Barry feel extra bad about it. I mean, basically he was just there to ensure that the world gets destroyed by World War III and that Barry realized that it was his own fault. Luckily, Barry escaped through time and stopped himself from saving his mom. When he woke up, everything was back to normal. Well, in the DC reboot kind of way, for everything being slightly different, but in a good-ish way. Barry finds Bruce, gives him a letter from his dad in one of the most touching scenes in comic book history, and boom, we've got a new continuity. This universe is called Prime Earth, and basically everything DC is going to do going forward is to course correct from this decision. Okay, so let's recap. At first, we had just the DC universe. There were no Earths yet. And then we had Earth 1, which later became New Earth, and is now known as Prime Earth. sometimes called Earth Zero. This is how canon DC continuity is still known. Prime Earth to this day is the current canon universe. We got that? Okay. Editorially speaking, this initiative was called The New 52. The New 52 was a true blank slate. Literally nothing from before Flashpoint existed in this universe, minus a handful of things that got retconned in later. It was DC's way to radically change everything they wanted and make things fresh. And most fans hated it. 52 new comic book series kicked off, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that nearly all of these were critical and commercial flops. There were some gems here and there, but generally fans hated this era. Honestly, a whole other video could be dedicated to this subject. It's just really fascinating how this corporate decision basically ruined fan perception for DC. But the best thing to know going forward is that a lot of the multiversal decisions that DC as a company will make going forward is sort of just to win back fan approval, honestly. After the New 52 version of Earth 3, remember them, the crime syndicate? After they fail to take over Prime Earth, the anti-monitor of the New 52 universe shows up to have a big fight with Darkseid. The anti-monitor ends up defeated. Darkseid ends up as a baby, and yeah, this video is already too long, I'm not explaining that. Owlman from Earth 3 sits on the Mobius chair, which is a chair of one of the new gods named Metron, who can see all things past and present. Owlman asks to know everything that has occurred, and he ends up being incinerated by an unknown force for reasons which will be explained later in this video. It's a good event, and I don't think a lot of people knew that it was paving the way towards another reboot of sorts. Only 5 years after the last one, DC basically realized, hey, seems like our fans prefer the previous versions of all of our characters in the past universe. So, they published some comics which basically catch up the readers on what exactly everyone was getting up to back on the New Earth timeline, along with some other continuities. It's also at this point that a map of the multiverse was revealed, which gives a sense of the multiverse. As you can see, there are 52 alternate universes here, along with some other worlds that we'll get into. For some reason, 52 is DC's favorite number. They seem to really dig it. But it's at this point in the video where we're just going to really dig into the different places in the multiverse. Alright, let's work our way from the outside of the multiverse to the inside. Now, how is there an outside of the multiverse, I hear you ask? It's a stupid question. Starting off, we've got the source wall. This is the barrier of the multiverse. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. If you touch it, you become absorbed into the wall forever and you die. The monitor sphere. This is where the monitors live. Monitors being the near omnipotent reality warpers. They live on the planet of Nil, Limbo. This is where all the old, forgotten, and abandoned characters go to fade into oblivion. The sixth dimension. This is the plane of existence that Perpetua and her children inhabit. The fifth dimension, home to noteworthy fifth-dimensional imps such as Batmite and Mr. Mixelpudlick, however you say that. And then there's the third and the fourth dimensions, time and space. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. This is where the rest of basically everybody exists at this point. Told you we'd come back to this. Again, a lot of ethereal and mythological places sort of exist here. We've got Dream. This is where imagination reigns supreme, home to a planet called Gen World. Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, another critically acclaimed comic published by DC, is concerned with this place a lot more than a lot of the mainstream comic books. There's Nightmare. This is the evil side of Dream. It's where all the nightmares sort of come to life. There's Heaven, the amalgamation of all of Earth's heavens. There's Hell. Similarly, the amalgamation of all of the Earth's hells. New Genesis, home to the High Father, Orion, and the other new gods. Apocalypse, Darkseid lives here, along with his Furies and his other minions. Skyland, now this is where the mythological gods live. Greek gods, Roman gods, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Norse gods, etc. All the sort of deities worshipped by people on Earth, they all exist here in Skyland. And then there's the Underworld, the Phantom Zone. This is Hell's underworld. Honestly, this is sort of where all the multiversal worlds and concepts that don't really fit into a neat category are thrown. It sort of exists in and around and between everything else in the multiverse. We've got the Speed Force Wall. This is the speed of light. You can't get through here unless you can break it. Only a select few people can even have any hopes of breaching this. Wonderworld. This is an extra universal planet orbiting the entire multiverse itself, made by the old gods in order to prevent Mageddon. It's currently inhabited by a group called the Theocracy. Once again, it's more lore stuff, doesn't really concern the wider multiverse as much as you'd think. And then there's the Frequency of Quiz. Honestly, I don't even know why this is included. It's a radio universe home to Crackle the Defender, resident speedster and friend to Wally West, the third Flash that we talked about. I think the whole multiversal map was created and drafted mostly by comic book superstar Grant Morrison, and he loves weird and wacky and obscure comic book things, so maybe that's why this is here. There's the Rock of Eternity. This is the center of the multiverse. This is a place where wizards gain their power, and some heroes come here to be judged. This is the birthplace of magic. And then there's the Bleed. This is the space between Earths, between everything. It's roamed by the monitors, making sure things are fine and harvesting energy, but sometimes heroes get stuck in here. And here we are, the star of the show. Are you going to go through them all? I hear you asking me with a hint of anticipation, but also trepidation. And you better believe we're gonna go through them all. I told you, this is not a journey for the lighthearted. These descriptions are the official descriptions that DC has given each world on their website, with some added commentary from me. We'll try to go through these pretty quick. I don't want to lose your interest, but I understand it can be daunting. We've got Prime Earth, the main continuity of the DC universe. This is home to Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and the rest of the Justice League as we know them. This is, like I said, the main continuity of the DC universe. Then we've got Earth 1. Time and space here is pliable. Nothing's quite certain. Heroes like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, they are much like their Prime Earth counterparts, with a few key differences. It's a younger universe. Not a lot has occurred similarly to Prime Earth. Earth 2. Imagine what might happen if Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman were all to fall in battle and were replaced and followed by a newer, younger Justice League. Earth 3. Opposite of Prime Earth, good is evil, evil is good. Home to the crime syndicate, twisted and evil versions of the Justice League. Earth 4. Remarkable men and women with no powers donned costumes and took to the streets. The home of Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, The Question, and Captain Atom. This is the Charlton Comics universe. Earth 5. Thunderworld, home to the Golden Age Marvel family. Captain Marvel Jr., and Mary Marvel. Right. Then there's Earth 6. Imagine if someone completely outside of the multiverse was to create their own version of the DC Universe's greatest heroes. These are drawn from Stan Lee's Just Imagine series, where he reinvented popular DC characters sort of in his own way. Earth 7. Once a thriving world, a recreation of Earth 8. What has transpired here is beyond tragic, which I still don't even really know what that means. Earth 8. How can a world be both familiar and new when it is home to a breed of heroes who fight with each other as much as they fight the bad guys? Home to the Retaliators and the Zen Men. If you haven't guessed, this is like DC's spoof of the Marvel Universe. Earth 9. Everything in this world has been influenced by its superheroes and its villains, from its economy and geography to its politics. This is the home to the heroes of the Tangent Comics universe. Earth 10. Earth X, as some have called it. Kal-El of Krypton landed in Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia and helped the Germans win World War II. And I guess everyone else just decided to go along with it? Alright, Earth 11. The genders may have switched here, but the nature of heroes isn't. Earth 12. A timeline running slightly ahead of Earth Zero's. This is the Batman Beyond future. Earth 13. A world of permanent magical twilight, sorcerers, and supernatural beings. Earth 14. A dark Earth, once home to the Justice League of Assassins, a group of augmented soldiers led by the powerful Superman. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied solely on weapons, primarily firearms. Earth 15, once considered the perfect universe, later destroyed by Superboy Prime of Earth 33. Alright, we doing good? Let's take a break, pause it, get yourself some water. Just give yourself a little breather before we move forward. Okay? We ready? Let's go. Let's keep going. Earth 16, a world where there is no longer evil for heroes to fight. Earth 17, 50 years after a nuclear war, the heroes of Earth-17 are on a last-chance quest to save the world's scattered population. Earth-18, led by the Super Chief, the Justice Riders of Earth-18 protect a world where technology and culture were frozen in the 19th century. Earth-19, King Edward rules this 21st century empire, where the past feels like the future and history takes a twisted turn. Earth-20, with the great and terrible world war behind them, the men and women of this resilient and hopeful planet have entered a phase of rebuilding. Earth-21, a world where hope and optimism drive human integrity and mankind still strives to reach for the stars. The new frontier. And this is one of my personal faves. Earth-22, the superpowered epitome of youth gone wrong. The young heroes of Earth-22 brought their world to the brink of destruction. This is the Kingdom Come comic book universe. Earth-23. Superman is president of the United States in this universe. Earth-24. Earth-25. I know, I can only do so much. Earth-26. A world where animals speak and live as humans. Home to Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew. Oof, yeah, I get it. You think we should go back to the unknowns? Okay. Earth-27. Earth-28. Earth-29, the Bizarroverse. A broken universe where up is down, right is wrong, and heroes are villains. Sort of. Earth-30, the Red Sun universe. Kal-El landed on a Russian farm, resulting in a Soviet Superman ruling the USSR with a benevolent hand. Okay. Only 22 more to go. Are we still with me? I've probably lost a lot of people up to this point, but for those of you who stuck around, it's going to be worth it. Trust me. Let's move on. Earth-31. Lift anchor and set sail on the seas of Earth-31, a post-apocalyptic world drowned by global warming and tectonic shifts. AKA, it's the world with just full of pirates. It's full of pirates. Earth-32. Superpowers and histories have collided and transformed to create heroes both alike and truly unlike any other. Earth-33. Remember Earth Prime? This is that place. No superheroes exist here, but they all seem to exert a powerful influence on the development and progress of the rest of the multiverse. Superboy Prime, once again, is from here. Earth-34. What's the superhero capital of this world? Cosmoville, a shining metropolis kept safe by the heroic Light Brigade. Earth-35. Supremo is the greatest hero of this pseudoverse, constructed by the Monitors by mining ideas, much like others might mine precious metals. Seems kinda messed up if you ask me. Earth-36. Home to the Super Team Justice 9, whose leader, Opti-Man, was slaughtered by the rampaging Super Doomsday of Earth-45. Earth-37. A world of lawless heroes and cynical champions who were propelled by an unprecedented burst of technological innovation. Earth-38. Here, Superman and Batman aged normally as their children inherited a world of wonder and tragedy, carrying the heroic baton into an unknown future. Earth-39. This world is home to the Agents of Wonder, an organization of United Nations super spies. Earth-40. A binary universe within the multiverse. It vibrates in harmony with its far more peaceful counterpart, Earth-20. Earth-41, a dark and often violent world. The nations and communities vary greatly and exist largely independently of one another. Standing united in this world is rare. Earth-42, home to Lilliputian versions of Superman, Batman, and the like, frolicking in a world without death or violence. Earth-43, a world of darkness and fear, where super vampires rule the night as the Blood League. Earth-44, people of this world were left vulnerable without any native superheroes, so they built some. Earth-45, an entire planet under corporate control, the birth of Super Doomsday. Alright, home stretch, we can make it. Just hang in there. Earth-46, unknown, again. Alright. Earth-47, all is groovy on Earth-47. The psychedelic, far-out world of Sunshine Superman and the Love Syndicate. Earth-48, a superpowered world where every day is a crossover event, every problem is a cataclysm, and even the birds have their own logos. Earth-49, the most mysterious of the unknown worlds, which, once again, I don't even know how that works, but that's all that it says here. Earth-50, world of the Justice Lords, a tyrannical team of superheroes who run the world as a police state. Earth-51, a fragile Earth ravaged by an unknown disaster where men act like beasts and beasts act like men. Earth-52, a reality that was created by the multiverse to preserve the era of the metaverse, which existed before both Dr. Manhattan's time meddling, as well as... What? Spoilers. All right, don't mind me. We'll get to that part of the timeline soon enough. Whew. Okay. We're done. Let's get back to our history here. There is something called the Dark Multiverse, and we're gonna get into that later, but you've all learned it. Let's get back to the story. DC, realizing the New 52 was probably just not the best idea, decided to try to bring things back in line with how they used to be. Back when they cared about what their readers thought. With Convergence fresh in the reader's mind, DC started to reintroduce characters that were inexplicably missing from Prime Earth, such as Ted Kord the Blue Beetle, Wally West, the original Kid Flash, and later the actual Flash, as we discussed. Lost in the Speed Force shows back up, confused as to why Prime Earth has forgotten him. For a while, he was the only refugee from New Earth who had somehow made it into the current continuity. Some characters began to start taking on characterizations of their older counterparts, such as Tim Drake, the Red Robin, and readers welcomed back with open arms the Golden Boy himself, Superman. If you remember, I said that the New 52 Prime Earth Superman died during the Darkseid War. To be honest, New 52 was probably one of the biggest disappointments for fans when he was revealed. He was younger, kind of more arrogant, liked kissing Wonder Woman instead of Lois Lane, and was altogether more of a bad attitude. So, who better to herald the return of good old DC than the good old Superman from New Earth? Since Convergence happened, and most of the old universes sort of just got a fun look in, the New Earth Superman was revealed to have escaped New Earth and made his way, along with his wife, Lois Lane, and their son, Jonathan Kent, to Prime Earth. And when New 52 Superman died, New Earth Superman decided to step up and take his place. 2016's Rebirth initiative, though not magically restoring the DC universe we all knew and loved, turned out to be a critical and commercial hit, and fans began to flock back to the DC universe once again. The perfect time for a new crisis to hit the multiverse. I know, it's a dumb title, but I kinda like it. Our heroes on Prime Earth, in the main continuity, learn of the existence of the Dark Multiverse. This is run by the evil god Barbados, and his evil deeds are carried out by the Batman Who Laughs. This is the sinister version of Batman from a world where Bruce Wayne finally crossed the line and murdered the Joker. Upon doing so, the Joker released a final dose of Joker toxin, which poisoned the mind of Bruce, turning him into the most metal of Batman. With the power of Barbados, the Batman Who Laughs unleashes the Dark Multiverse, where a group of evil Bruce Waynes who inexplicably took over their own worlds comes into the main multiverse to terrorize its heroes. Batman and his super friends defeat Barbados and his twisted gang of Batman, which results in the breaching of the Source Wall, unleashing the aforementioned Perpetua from the 6th dimension. Now let's put Perpetua and her plight on hold for now. I know what you all want now. I can sense it. You want me to go through some more alternate universes? Let's go through the Dark Multiverse. Now don't worry, there aren't a full 52 universes that we can look at. There are only a select few that are even named. They are just the ones that the evil Batman people came from, and it's somewhat interesting to see how these twisted versions of Bruce Wayne came to be. So without further ado, Earth -52. A nightmare reality. Its Batman was maddened by the deaths of his crime-fighting family and kidnapped the Flash, forcibly merging with him to gain his powers in hope of finally being able to be everywhere at once, creating an evil version of the Flash and Batman coming together to be the Red Death. Earth -44. Batman asked for Cyborg's help in creating an AI based on his butler's mind. The AI then fused with Batman, excising his ability to feel fear, remorse, or pain, and thus erasing his humanity. The newly born murder machine then went on a rampage and used his abilities to kill all the members of this world's Justice League. Earth -32. After the death of his parents, Bruce Wayne was granted a Green Lantern ring because he had conquered great fear. However, Bruce was devoid of all emotion, overpowering the ring and killing his parents' murderer. Wayne was temporarily regarded as a hero until his murderous tendencies caught up with him. After killing the entire Green Lantern Corps, Wayne became Batman, the Dawnbreaker. Earth -22. We already explained this one. This is the home turf of the Batman Who Laughs himself. Earth -12. After finally catching Ares, Batman took his helmet and went mad with power, killing both Ares and Wonder Woman and becoming Batman the Merciless. Earth -11. Alright, Remember how Earth 11 is full of gender-reversed heroes? Same principle here. After the death of her beloved Sylvester Kyle, Bryce Wayne started a war against metahumans, eventually going up against Aqua Woman. In retaliation for killing their leader, the Atlanteans sunk Gotham City, forcing Batwoman to adapt and perform operations on herself to survive in this drowned world. Earth -1. After the Superman of this Earth turned murderous, Batman attempted to fight him, first with the Spear of Kryptonite, and after Superman cut off his arm with the spore of the Doomsday Virus. After killing Superman by impaling him with the spikes of the Doomsday Virus, the virus quickly began to spread and infected the whole city that lay around him, only to realize it was too late to save his world. Batman was infected with the Doomsday Virus, becoming a Doomsday Superman-Batman hybrid. Okay, cool. That's it. You still with me? Sorry to spring that on you all so soon after the last info dump of Earths, but these were kind of relevant. Anyways, onward to Doomsday Clock. And it's here that the Weird Watchmen tangent comes back around. When 2016's Rebirth was announced, DC creative lead Jeff Johns had thrown out little hints, little clues, and little Easter eggs about the return of the Watchmen universe. To many, it seemed impossible to properly continue or integrate this into the DC universe. But Jeff Johns, the literal king of just bringing back comic book characters he loved from back in the day, decided he'd do it this one last time. Doomsday Clock is the story of the Watchmen universe colliding with the main DC multiverse. It is revealed that Dr. Manhattan, the omnipresent and often naked blue man group-looking dude, stumbled upon the DC multiverse and decided to start making things better by making it so certain events didn't happen. This is why some of the Golden Age heroes like Jay Garrick and Alan Scott and the rest of the Justice Society, along with Wally West, were missing from the continuity until recently. This is why Owlman blew up when he tried to learn about all things. This is why The Button has been popping up. Old Dr. Manhattan was the one who disintegrated Reverse Flash in the Batman Flash crossover. Oof. Did we miss that? Well, now you know. Anyway, Dr. Manhattan fights Superman. Superman is like the only person who Dr. Manhattan really fears and believes that Superman will be the one to kill him. But they have a super epic conversation and bada bing bada boom, Dr. Manhattan has a change of heart. He restores the missing years to the timeline and then goes back to his universe while fostering the growth of a child which will grow to become the Watchmen universe's Superman. Because it turns out the real problem with that crappy universe was that it was the only universe without a Superman. And everything seemed great up until this point. Until it wasn't. Remember how I said that the same entity named Perpetua was released when the Source Wall broke back in Dark Knight's Metal? This concerns some of that. Basically, Lex Luthor, in investigating the breach in the Source Wall, allies himself with the mysterious Perpetua, a being from the 6th dimension, and is the mother of the original Monitor and Anti-Monitor. Luthor, with her power, goes to war with the heroes of Earth. They obviously win, but this whole ordeal basically sets up the next large cosmic problem. Man, I promise you, we are wrapping up the history here, but we need another info dump. There's some key individuals I'd like to go over, and there just wasn't a better place really to throw it in the video until now. So, without further ado, let's get to it. We're just going to go over some of the big metaversal entities that have played a part in the reshaping of the multiverse at this point. Don't worry, this is probably the last info dump in this style, so just bear with me. The Presence, the sole creator of everything, taken many forms including the Source, the Voice, and the Hand. The Source, created by the emergence of the universe. Great energy of creation that lives in all things. The Source Wall protects the Source. The Great Darkness. This is the true source and embodiment of all darkness within the universe. The Hands. These are cosmic entities created by the Source for the express purpose of populating the greater metaverse with infinite multiverses. They're in charge of creating everything. Then there's the Quintessence, a group of the highest order of beings within the multiverse who bear witness to all events that did happen, are happening, and will happen. Notable members include Ganthet, Hera, the High Father, the Phantom Stranger, the Wizard, and the Spectre. Kelmasa, also known as Pariah, he was a key player in Crisis on Infinite Earths. He's the sole survivor of his universe and is destined to have his warning of the multiversal peril ignored every single time, though they always come to pass. Then there's Perpetua. She's one of the Hands. She's the creator of the first multiverse and mother of Mar-Novu, the Monitor, Mobius, the Anti-Monitor, and Alpheus, the World Forger, all of which reside in the 6th dimension. Mar-Novu, as mentioned, the Monitor, or the Over-Monitor, was created to monitor and nurture the multiverse and to halt any crisis that may come its way. Mobius, the Anti-Monitor, creator of the Mobius Chair, tasked to ensure the light of creation does not breach the greater omniverse, once tried to eat all the different Earths to engulf everything in antimatter. Alpheus, the World Forger. He works in the World Forge, a place deep in the dark beneath creation to create universes from fears and feelings of every living being. The one who laughs, you know him. It's the Batman who laughs, but following his disappearance has become known as a much darker entity within the multiverse. Dr. Manhattan, Dr. John Osterman, nuclear physicist caught in a radioactive particle test which transformed him into a godlike, emotionally detached being known as Dr. Manhattan, comes from a world without a Superman, a world essentially without hope. Well, now that's it for these big cosmic entities. Most of these people played a big part, or will play a big part, going forward. So now that you know that, let's get back into it. Following some stunning events of 2019's Hero in Crisis, which I will not chronicle here, Wally West gets enlisted by Tempus Fuginaut, a multiversal sentinel, to help keep further intrusions of the dark multiverse out of the main multiverse. Wally West, who up until this point has been a man out of time, finds his old wife and 2 children from his previous continuity and saves them, bringing them back to Prime Earth while he consigns himself to a life upon the Mobius chair watching the multiverse. Wally begins to reconcile minor discrepancies between the main continuity and its disparate paths to ensure everything is running smoothly. All of this before encountering a dark foe, one thought long forgotten, the one who laughs. I know, just when you thought the titles couldn't get sillier. The one who laughs, working for Perpetua, who has now exerted her will upon the DC universe, has given the one who laughs stewardship over Prime Earth. Everything has been rewritten. Superman is imprisoned. Batman is undead, wielding a Black Lantern ring to fight a hopeless rebellion against the cosmic forces. And Wonder Woman, working from inside the system, hopes to change the sway of Perpetua's reign. Things take a turn when the one who laughs kills Perpetua, absorbing her power along with the power of the corpse of Dr. Manhattan to become the ultimate villainous entity, the full wielder of the great darkness, the darkest night. The full weight of all the darkness of the multiverse comes crashing down upon Prime Earth. Wonder Woman, in a desperate bid to protect all she loves, fuses herself with the power of the Hands in order to destroy the darkest night once and for all and usher in a new generation for the DC universe. At this point, all the past iterations of the multiverse have now merged into one great whole, each being now having the complete past of each main continuity restored to their memory. All looks bright upon this new infinite frontier. With everything seemingly all put back together, the DC universe moves forward into a new generation. Now, I'll admit, going forward, I'm a little less familiar with the DC lore at this point, which I'll explain later. But we're winding down here, so sit back in for the home stretch. Basically, Wonder Woman, after her heroics to thwart the darkest night, was offered a seat among the Quintessence. However, she was warned that a threat might appear after helping the Hands of Creation restart the universe. After some reassurances, however, she opts to return to Prime Earth to live in the infinite frontier rather than just merely observe it. It is discovered that some heroes have returned with the merging of the universes. Some that had died have been resurrected, and some have made an appearance after a long time dormant. Now the threat Wonder Woman was warned about, however, decides to rear his ugly head. Of course, these things are cyclical, and with every single version of himself combined into one, the truly ultimate version of Darkseid comes forth, ready to take the metaverse for himself. Like Convergence, Rather than keeping tabs on old universes, Future State offers a glimpse at a possible future of the DC universe. Since fans hate changes, this feels like DC testing the water a little bit. Heroes such as Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman see certain younger heroes take up their mantle. Many comics over a 2-month period were published in lieu of the main continuity in some cases to explore this potential timeline. Yet this future is not set in stone, and though seemingly inconsequential, I decided to throw it in here because honestly, DC has not been getting up to much in the multiverse department recently, so. It's revealed that Pariah, the guy from Crisis on Infinite Earths, remember him? Woe is me, nobody listens to me, the world is going to end guy. He decides that he's going to make his own perfect multiverse, somehow. Pariah is able to create the infinite universes that were lost during the Anti-Monitor's initial assault pre-Crisis on Infinite Earth. Meanwhile, the Great Darkness, using Deathstroke to enact its plans, invades Earth. Pariah sends heroes from his new perfect multiverse to answer the call. This results in a major conflict, which then results in the Justice League being disbanded. Deathstroke is killed, and Amanda Waller, notorious secret agent warmonger lady, is approached by the mysterious Council of Light, a front for Brainiac to destroy Earth, and is given unlimited resources to rid the world of all of its superpowered heroes. Honestly, this might just be a Batman crossover with a lot of other heroes, but like I said, not a whole ton has been going on recently. But there's this crossover called Lazarus Planet, in which Batman, Damian Wayne, Robin, and a handful of other heroes combat some resurrected old gods, including deities from China and some Greek gods. Honestly, the wiki article on this is a stub and contains no further info, so I don't really know what to tell you. But this is the last main event that the DC Universe has seen. What happened with the Darkseid reveal or the Council of Light? I guess that remains to be seen in the near future as the DC Universe limps onward. As I mentioned before, I sort of checked out on keeping up with the DC lore at this point, and I think DC did too. My opinions aside, it just seems like the DC overarching story and their big multiverse has sort of taken a back seat in recent years. In a way, it's great that they're attempting to focus on more individual stories rather than a wider continuity, but even that department I'd say is somewhat lacking. Many of their individual titles have ended or canceled, and much of who I would consider their talented creators either left DC or have lost their touch. And I'd say DC editorial, and probably their parent company, Warner Brothers, as a whole have just lost touch with their fans, focusing more on creating stories and pulling stunts for an audience that doesn't actively read or buy their comic. But as I said, that's just my opinion. There's still been some really incredible stories that have come out of DC lately. I just think their century-long story of a really interesting multiverse has sort of been in a slump. Yet, I still yearn for the days of DC's yesteryear, and I hope that perhaps DC will get it together and light the old beacons to signify a true return to the spark that made DC truly great. A return to the values of the Golden Age, the wonder of a Man of Tomorrow, the heroics of a caped crusader, and the hope of an amazing Amazon. A genuine new frontier.